You are about to experience a revolutionary new concept based on one of the oldest financial tools in the world. Thousands have benefited from the life-changing principles held within the infinite banking concept, Becoming Your Own Banker, created by R. Nelson Nash. Please listen carefully to this educational presentation and open your mind to new financial freedom.
Infinite banking is a way for me to recapture all the finance costs of my lifestyle.
I have someplace to go with my finances now.
I mean, it's the truth, and everything else that I found is so marketing oriented that it has the flavor of untruth.
The truth will set you free. Well, this is the truth about money. It's going to set us free.
Nelson does a great job of making everyone aware of different types of strategies in order to maximize your wealth.
Becoming Your Own Banker.
What if you could get a loan on a home or car simply by answering one question? Can I afford it? And the answer came back from a committee of one, yourself. Best of all, you are the one who can make money off your own indebtedness. Sound impossible? Not if you use the principles of the infinite banking concept, which tells you how to become your own banker. By using this proven system, created by R. Nelson Nash, you can actually become your own banker and reap the monetary benefits and financial freedom everyone dreams of. In the following tapes, you'll be guided step by step through Nash's revolutionary method of using life insurance for living the good life. That's right, with life insurance. With an understanding of how the monetary and insurance systems work, you can use their benefits to increase your net worth, virtually tax-free, while you finance every aspect of your life. Now, prepare to clear your mind to think about money in a totally new way. We're not talking about investing here. It goes far beyond buying a few stocks or bonds. We are talking about creating a whole financial system to bring your own money back to you. Think about it. If you just learn how to keep what you have, you're way ahead of the game. With the infinite banking concept, you'll make money like the banks do, with absolutely no risk, just by investing in yourself. The first thing you need to understand is that money is made to flow. It moves around the world almost instantly, changing hands, changing currencies, changing form. But it is always money. Some of it forms into small piles, some of it into large piles. It's been said if all the money in the world could be distributed equally among all the people on earth, in 10 years, 97% of the money would be right back in the hands of 3% of the people. That's because most folks know next to nothing about banking. Banking is the most important business in the world. Without it, all businesses come to a screeching halt. Yet the closest many people come to doing their own banking is writing a check. As a youngster, I thought it was the greatest thing in the world to watch my mom write a check with no money. It was a long time before I realized the check represented real money, which in my case was around 30. Hopefully, you'll have figured this out much sooner. No matter when you start, everyone should be in two businesses. One, the one in which you make your living, and the other, the banking business. The good news is, with the infinite banking concept, you can take control of your destiny simply by becoming your own banker. Now, do you want to be part of the 3%, the wealthy ones, or the 97%? It's up to you. Anyone with any income can create prosperity by taking this course of study and making it a way of life. The infinite banking concept is akin to creating your own wellspring of riches. Think of money as water. It must flow to water the crops that feed us, and it must flow through our veins to maintain our 70-something% water content. Yet, there is only one pool of water. It rains into lakes and oceans, evaporates into air, freezes into glaciers, and creates that tall, cool glass of water you drink after cutting the grass that springs up after a good rain. Money is the same way. While for most folks it seems to trickle in, for others it's a cascading waterfall. Make money flow for you and take control of its direction into your hands. The key is knowing how to be your own rainmaker. No need to learn a rain dance, just a few simple concepts we're going to outline for you. This is how banking works. In every business transaction, money must flow from one party to another in a relatively short period of time. Otherwise, those narrow-minded folks won't do business with you. When you sell something, the opposite is also true. That flow must come from a pool. There's only one pool of money in the world. This pool is managed by banks, insurance companies, corporations, and individuals, all in various countries with different currencies. The place and form of the money is beside the point. To argue otherwise would be like saying the Amazon River flows into the Atlantic and has nothing to do with the Indian Ocean across the globe. That's the same thing as saying the yen has nothing to do with the euro. Nonsense. It's all a part of a system, just like the banking system. Money from the pool flows through our hands, but it all ends up back in the banking system. Financial success measures the attention you pay to your control of the banking function as it relates to your needs. It can make a radical improvement in your financial future. It's the difference between having your own backyard Olympic-sized pool or dodging kids in the community swimming pool. When you have your own pool, you never have to watch out for a fat guy doing a cannonball on your bank account. Throughout this audio tape, we will introduce you to the principles of the infinite banking concept, or how to become your own banker.
How the infinite banking concept got started.
Leverage is a concept as old as the first man who moved a rock from in front of a cave. Prehistoric man had this one figured out. Modern financial companies have refined it into a magic formula that uses someone else's money to make your money. This practice works extremely well in a rising market. But what happens when the market drops like a linebacker on a loose football? You can watch your net worth fall faster than a man without a parachute. An injured skydiver once tried to talk me into trying his sport by assuring me if anything went wrong, I'd have time to tell the Lord I was coming soon. Here's a true-life example from Nelson Nash, the inventor of infinite banking. He experimented with real estate. With the profits from one small parcel of land, he and his wife spent a month in Europe. At that time, prime interest rate was 8%, plus an additional 1.5% because he was not a prime customer like General Motors. Heady with success and bolstered with French pastries, he expanded his investments, not his waistline. Along came 1981 and 1982. The prime rate rose and peaked out at 21.5%. Add 1.5% on top, and it totaled 23% interest on $500,000. That amounts to $115,000 of interest per year. This came as a real shock to him, so he asked his real estate advisors, who had recommended these investments, "What do you do when this sort of thing happens?" They answered, "Sell some of the real estate." There's only one problem here. Where's the fool who will buy it at 23% interest rate? Of course, everything will sell if you get the price low enough, but losing 5 times what you paid is hardly a happy solution, and Nelson is a man who likes to be happy. A high price to pay, but getting out through this method would mean big losses. Let's hear what Nelson Nash has to say about those years.
The beginning of my awakening was in November of 1980, when our first grandchild was born. Interest rates had begun to zoom upward. That was Bunker Hunt's heyday. You remember him? Bunker and his brother were going to corner the silver market, and as a result, silver prices hit the sky. Gold went up to $800 per ounce. And so, drug junkies started supporting their habit by stealing silver from homes. While my wife was visiting the new grandchild for a few days, they broke into our home and cleaned us out. Have you ever been burglarized? You won't believe what they can do to your house in just a few minutes. 2 months later, my 52-year-old brother dropped dead from a heart attack while playing handball with his son. Poor selection of ancestors. Our father died at age 64 from the same problem. 5 months later, our second granddaughter was born out in Hawaii. 5 weeks later, her parents discovered the baby had cancer. I didn't even know babies could get cancer. She went on chemotherapy when she was just 6 weeks old. 6 months later, she went through surgery to remove the tumor. The cancer was a neuroblastoma, a very rare kind that attacks children. My story has a good part. She's now a healthy adult. We've seen a miracle. Now, that was the year that interest rates went to 23%, and there I sat owing $500,000 under those conditions. When a series of events occur to you like these, the quality and quantity of your prayer life increases dramatically. The basic idea revealed in the infinite banking concept was born over a period of many, many months at 3 and 4 in the morning in the kneeling position, praying, Lord, please show me a way out of this financial nightmare that I've created for myself. I can't blame it on anyone else. The answer came back about like a baseball bat across the eyes. You are standing in the midst of everything it takes to get out, but you don't see it because you look at things the way everyone else does. You can get the money during these terrible times at 5% to 8% from 3 different life insurance companies. And the only thing that limits how much you can get to is the same thing they ask you at the bank when you ask them how big of a check can you write. They ask, how much have you put in?
Fortunately, Nelson had paid large insurance premiums, unwittingly creating his own banking system. It was opposite to what all the traditional experts said, but Nelson had enough of experts, the very ones who nearly recommended him into the poorhouse. Through his own insight and ingenuity, he found a way out, and now shines the light for you. Maybe you found yourself in such a financial prison. Through this audio tape, we are offering you a copy of The Warden's Key. Or maybe you're still on the outside, but want to avoid financial shackles. Maybe your problem is smaller or greater. Whatever, the principles are the same, and they'll serve you well. It requires study and discipline, and you're going to need a coach to see you through the initial stages of learning the process.
Imagination.
The infinite banking concept is an exercise in imagination, reason, logic, and prophecy. So, to start out, let's begin with the part about imagination. After all, Einstein said imagination is more important than knowledge.
The grocery store.
Pretend you're starting a business where you're both a consumer and a seller. A grocery store is a good example because everyone eats. Every Homo sapien, along with a few canines and felines, within 30 miles is a potential customer, including you and your family. We'll call your friends and family captive customers because they'll always shop with you, or else. Nothing can be more depressing than seeing your wife shop with a competitor. If that's the case, you might as well check the grocery bags for poison. To start your store, you study what the grocery business is all about. This is going to take time. Now you must stock the store with groceries. Then you open the front door, and customers come in, fill their carts with groceries, and pay at the checkout counter. Now you have empty spaces on the shelves of your store. Your hired help is busy cruising the aisles, noticing where goods have been sold, and quickly filling those spaces. It must look like you have plenty of things to buy, or customers will find someone else who does. So, pull more money out of your pocket and restock the storeroom. The objective of the business is to provide you with an income while you work in it. Ultimately, you may want to sell it to someone else to provide a retirement income when you no longer want to evaluate whether or not broccoli is fresh enough to sell. Now, let's talk about the profits you earn. The 60-cent can of peas sitting on the shelf represents inventory. You had to pay the wholesaler 57 cents for it. You must turn the inventory 15 times just to break even. There's all the interest you must pay on the huge sums of money you've borrowed to buy the land, the building, the signs, advertising, payroll, utilities, accounting, etc. Turn the inventory 17 times and you'll be profitable. If you can turn it 20 times per year, you can retire early. Something dramatic happens once you get over the hump and results leap exponentially. It all reminds me of a phenomenon in physics. Take a pail of water at sea level and heat it to 210 degrees Fahrenheit. All you have is very hot water, too hot for dishes, too cool to make tea. But if you heat it up to 212 degrees, you have live steam with unbelievable power. The steam engine changed the world, but it doesn't happen until you get past 212 degrees. Lots of heat goes into the process up to the boiling point, but the dramatic power comes suddenly. Results in business are like that. But now we complicate the picture. Assuming you're a male, married, with children, where's your wife going to shop for groceries? Your store or somewhere else? We are talking about a woman who's happy with you, not the person you may have had a fight with last night. Assuming all is well and she chooses correctly your store, she comes into the front door and fills her cart with groceries. Here comes the complicated part. Please pay close attention and be scrupulously honest. Out of which door is she likely to take the groceries? Front or back? An amazing number will tell you without a hint of shame, in all probability, she wants to go out the back door, avoiding the cashier at the front door. This is a polite description of theft. I can't put it any plainer than that. Probably more businesses have been destroyed by this behavior than anything else. You cannot steal from yourself and prosper. The one person you must be honest with is you. It's a feeling among owners and those related to them. This is our business, and we can do anything we want. As we say, that dog won't hunt. Unless this dishonesty is stopped, the business is doomed. Consider this. Can she go out the back door with her groceries without the hired help seeing her? I think not. So what will the hired help do as a result? They're going to do the same thing. If you're unaware of how often theft occurs in retail, just find a retailer to ask. The answer will shock you. Who pays for all this theft? The customers. It can't come from anywhere else. Theft is devastating. Just think about it like this. If your wife steals 1 can of peas, you have to sell 20 to make up for it. If this simple truth does not register with you, stop this tape and replay this part over as many times as it takes to get it firmly planted in your mind. If it still does not register, then stop the tape and give it to someone else. You're wasting your time. There is another entity encouraging this backdoor dealing. Every business in the United States has a silent partner. This partner never works a lick, but shows up every payday with his hand out for his share. And he doesn't share nicely. It's the Internal Revenue Service. If your wife goes out the front door and pays retail for her groceries, then your store makes more money than if she went out the back door. And the IRS posture holds, the more you make, the more we take. But back to using our imagination. This point is important, so pay close attention. Suppose we could have a situation where the profits from the sale of groceries are not subject to taxes of any kind. Now we've eliminated one of the incentives to go out the back door with goods. The only problem remaining is the human instinct to want to use the backdoor privilege. This urge must be overcome. Do a 12-step program if you have to. Your business is at stake. Now, as we mentioned earlier, you and your family, plus maybe some others, are captive customers for your store. You do not go elsewhere to buy groceries. Now, if you charge these captive customers wholesale prices, you've defeated the purpose of the business to provide income for you now and retirement income later. If you charge captive customers retail prices, you're going in the right direction. But these are captive customers. Why not charge these folks 62 cents for things others pay 60 cents for? The extra 2 cents will go directly to additional capital to buy more cans of peas to sell to the other customers. Hopefully, you can see what continued use of this practice can do to the profitability of your business. Do this over a long number of years, and your record books will show a superior profitability picture. And with all the money you make, you can maintain your family popularity at the same time. When you sell your business some years later, you're in competition with someone else who has not obeyed these principles. He and his family members took their groceries out the back door. The record books of this man's business will never look as good as yours. Can you guess which business will bring the better price? Yours. And this makes it possible for you to clip larger coupons and grab hold of its meaning now. A banking case perfectly illustrates this point. It happened in September 1983 in Texas, in the richest city per capita in America at the time. It will show you, if you try, you really can lose money, no matter how fat the wallet you start with. All it takes is a little greed and stupidity, or maybe just the greed. This bank had a loan portfolio of $1.5 billion. And 26% of those loans were non-performing, which means people were not repaying them. This is what would be called a downer in the banking business. It's the equivalent of the proverbial sorry brother-in-law whose idea of work is changing the batteries in the remote control. When this sort of thing happens, the bank is in deep trouble. This bank is shakier than a wet dog. And then the public found out. You get one guess as to what happened to bank deposits. Right, they decreased by $500 million. Remember, this is what banks lend, deposits made by their customers. Their decline went from a few falling rocks to an avalanche. This all sounds pretty ominous, but you haven't seen anything yet. You must add the multiplier effect of bank lending practices. Practically no one knows when you make a deposit of $1,000, they can lend out $10,000 as a result of your deposit. Anyone who has watched the great holiday movie It's a Wonderful Life will remember the scene where the panicked citizens make a run on the bank. It really happened throughout America, and it wasn't one of our finer moments. Well, it was pretty clear a lot of the loans were made to the directors of the bank. Had they repaid their loans, plus interest, their bank would have still been in operation. Going out the back door with loans put a padlock on the front door. All banks that went bankrupt during this period, in record quantities, were just a variation of what happened in Texas. Does all this sound somewhat like the grocery store example? But first, let's study the spending problem. Let's take an all-American man and his spending habits. We will use a modest income because you do not have to be rich to create a banking system to handle your financing needs. 20% is spent on transportation, 30% on housing, 45% on living such as clothes, groceries, charitable contributions, boat payments, vacations, etc. Many of these items are financed by charge cards or bank notes. The balance is financed by paying cash for them, and thus giving up interest that could be earned. He's saving less than 5% of disposable income. But to be as generous as possible, let's assume he's saving 10% and spending only 40% on living expenses. Bear in mind that this is a very generous assumption. The savings rate in America is more like 1% at best. The problem is that all these items are financed by other banking organizations. An automobile financing package for this young person carries an interest rate of at least 8.5%, with payments of $260 a month. But if you'll check with a sales manager of the car lot, you discover 95% of the cars traded in are not paid for. This means while this young man owns the car, 21% of every payment dollar is interest. Even if he goes the full 4 years, the interest portion of every payment is still 20%. The volume of interest is the real issue, not the annual percentage rate. For a real thrill, go see the sales manager of the high-priced cars and ask him what percentage of the cars leaving their car lot are leased. The answer will probably be 75% or more. Leasing is even more costly than this. Think of it this way. When you go to the doctor's office to get a shot, the criteria is not the rate at which the medicine is injected. It's the volume. Too little, and it won't do any good. Too much, and it can kill you. Get the point? Now, let's move to the housing situation. This young man can qualify for a 30-year mortgage for about $93,000. He can get a fixed interest rate of 7% APR with payments of $618.75. Closing costs total about $2,500. Within 5 years, he'll probably marry one of those favorite gals and want a larger home. Something happens to a mortgage within 5 years. The numbers will cause you to go on Prozac. In 5 years, including closing costs, he paid $39,625, but only $5,458 has gone to reduce the loan. This means $34,167 is gone. Divide the amount paid out into the interest and closing costs, and you find 86% of every dollar paid out goes to interest and starts all over again. He thinks he's buying a house, but all he's really doing is greasing the wheels of the banking and real estate business. In the next segment of his spending pattern, the living expenses, this is where you need to be sitting down, because you'll have to look up so high to see the interest costs, you could get a nosebleed. the interest on his boat payments, credit card interest, plus the cost of casualty insurance on the automobiles, etc., will rival the interest paid on automobile financing. Now, add up all the interest, and you find 34.5 cents of every disposable dollar paid out is interest. For the average all-American male, this proportion never changes. Let's assume he's trying to save 10% of his income after taxes. If you'll get this young man together with his peers at a coffee break or some such gathering, and have one of them suggest they discuss financial matters, I can predict what they will talk about: getting a high rate of return on the portion they're saving. Meanwhile, every participant in the conversation is paying out more than they'll ever receive. What a tragedy. But this is how they learn to get ahead. It's time they looked behind. Another analogy will help. Nelson says, "I've been an airplane pilot for over 57 years and noticed something at the very start. You can't fly an airplane through a vacuum. It must go through an environment. You've all seen the highs and lows on a weather map. The highs are the good weather. The winds turn clockwise in the northern hemisphere and they move west to east. Suppose you're in Birmingham, Alabama, and your destination is Chicago. You have an airplane that will fly 100 miles per hour. But the trouble is, you have a headwind of 345 miles per hour. Net result? Your airplane is moving toward Miami at 245 miles per hour. If you really want to go to Chicago, the smartest thing you can do is land immediately and wait until the high gets directly over Birmingham. Now, get in the same airplane and head to Chicago. You're covering the ground at 100 miles per hour. The arrival syndrome sets in. No headwind. You just can't do any better than this, you think. Nonsense. Stay on the ground in Birmingham for a little longer. Let the air mass move on. Now, get in your 100-mile-an-hour airplane and head for your destination. You're being pushed by a 345-mile-per-hour tailwind. Your ground speed is 445 miles an hour. But the real story is much more dramatic than this. Everything you do in the financial world is compared to what everyone else is doing. At least 90% of Americans are flying with a headwind of 345 miles an hour. If you have a 345-mile-an-hour tailwind, the difference between you and them is twice the wind, 690 miles an hour. Same airplane, same airspeed. But nearly every financial guru is spending all the time trying to make the airplane go 105 miles an hour. Nonsense. It's much more profitable to control the environment. You can't do anything about it in the airplane world, but you can in the financial world. You can control the banking function in your life. But to do so, you must get in the banking business. That's what this book is about, creating a perpetual tailwind to everything you do in the financial world. This is the unique message of the infinite banking concept.
Creating a bank like the ones you already know about.
If you're going to create a bank like the ones you already know about, there are a number of steps you must go through. Like the grocery business we discussed earlier, you must first study the business so you have a firm grip on what it's all about. Without this confidence, you're fighting a lost cause. Next, you must get some capital, as in money, and it had better be more than pocket change, like $20 million or more. This money must sit in some other bank in a very liquid form, as in as close as you can get to cash. It's earning a very low interest rate. Then you go to the banking commissioner's office and apply for a charter. You're going to spend a lot of time and money creating your bank. Years and many gray hairs are likely to have come and gone before you finally win the coveted charter. Now you're finally in business as a bank. You must make your bank known by lots of advertising and other promotional schemes. In his book, Paper Money, author Adam Smith has this to say: "A banker cannot make a loan unless he has a deposit." It seems a little silly to state that so boldly, but if 3 college-educated Americans in 10 don't know we have to import oil, I don't mind saying something bold. Banks do not lend their money. They lend the money somebody else has left there. Furthermore, you must maintain a prudent relationship between the capital stock, the deposits, and the loans. Yes, there are financial agents of the government with the definition of prudence. Still, they did not prevent massive bank failures in the mid-1980s in America. During the same time, the Asian banking community could do no wrong. They were hailed as financial geniuses. Now there are bank failures in Asia much greater than the debacle we saw in the U.S. My point is, we are not dealing here with man-made laws. They have failed miserably. We are dealing with relations among people, which are the laws God made. These laws are unchanging. Disobey them at your peril. You must admit, getting into the business the traditional way is costly and time-consuming, and it will probably take 10 years to show a profit. But once the profits start rolling, it must be extremely profitable. There's a much easier way to create your own banking system, and the good news is it has been time-tested for more than 200 years. You can thank your forefathers for working out the kinks so you have a smooth-running system at your fingertips. All you have to do is to look at it with fresh eyes to realize the banking solution has been waiting to be discovered, just like electricity or steam. No one saw it before, but it was there all along, just waiting to be harnessed. Don't let ignorance stop you. There were people in the early days of electricity stuffing corn cobs in empty light bulb sockets to keep the electricity from getting on the floor. Your financial power starts with what is called participating or dividend-paying whole life insurance. At this point, it will help if you understand the word cogeneration. It is a term used in the production of electrical power. Electrical power is produced in plants using fossil fuels, nuclear fuels, or water to turn turbines. But there's another source: wood products. Tree bark and sawdust heat up a pretty good fire. Every respectable sawmill uses this fuel to make extra electricity, or cogeneration. Imagine you own a paper mill, and your cogeneration plant can produce 125% of your need for electrical power. What do you do with the surplus power? Yes, you can sell it. But do you erect power distribution lines, get a sales force, and pound the pavement looking for customers? No, all you do is plug into the system that already exists. Creating your own banking system through the use of dividend-paying life insurance is much like cogeneration. All the ingredients are already there in place. All you have to do is understand where to find the power lines and tap into the system.
Creating your own banking system through dividend-paying life insurance.
In creating any product, it all begins with engineering. The car you drive started out as a few lines on a piece of paper. If the production workers don't do what the engineers designed, you could have something you would kindly call a lemon. But the system worked and your car rolls off the assembly line and into your driveway. Suppose I get the next one. It looks identical to yours. Same color, equipment, features. Will both perform identically during their lifetimes? Of course not. Mine will always break down first. There are people who get 200,000 miles just with a change of spark plugs, and those who can't get 50,000 miles before they have worn the car out. Now let's apply this analogy to the insurance business. The engineers in life insurance are known as actuaries. They harvest from a field of 10 million selected lives, and they're working with a theoretical lifespan of 100 years. If you want to know how long you're likely to live, truthfully confide all of your bad and good habits to one of these guys. The answer could be spooky, of course. You'll only know that for sure one way. They use impressive data. It's enough to make you buy a gym membership and actually go. Armed with their facts, the actuaries turn over their information to rate makers. They determine what the company is going to have to charge clients in order to have enough to pay the death claims. This keeps the whole system working over the long haul. Insurance is one of the few industries looking beyond the next quarter, but instead into the next century. Remember, it's 200-year history. The contract finally offered to customers is unilateral, which means the company promises to do certain things if you meet their criteria and make premium payments. Read the contract. Anyone should be able to break through the legal jargon to read clearly this very important fact. You own the contract, not the insurance company. To make the plan work, The owner must make premium payments. This is the capital with which you start your banking business. In return, the company, think of them as your hired help, must put the money to work. In this way, the company can produce the promised benefits, such as death benefits and dividends. Look at the investment portfolio of a number of life insurance companies, and you'll see that they invest well, and generally conservatively. One speculative place where some companies do invest is real estate developments. Some large urban centers have been entirely financed by one life insurance company. But Walmart will never outrank you. Read the contract, or what you might call the policy, and you'll find, plainly stated, the owner outranks every potential borrower. That means you get first crack at the money being loaned. You're the number one customer for your own money. You come ahead of stocks, bonds, buildings, and boutiques. What you can borrow is 100% of your equity in the contract. So, ready for the power trip? You possess absolute control over the investment function of the company. Money can be loaned elsewhere only if the owner of the policy does not exercise his option to use the money for himself. You've got first rights. The reason most folks never recognize this fact is that they never put much money into the system. As borrowers pay back with interest, there is an ever-increasing pool of money. From time to time, an insured person dies. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, the company pays the beneficiary from the pool of money. The cost is spread out among the policy owners on an equitable basis. The administrators work as your hired help. This staff cost is prorated among the policy owners too. Furthermore, the policy is engineered to become more efficient every year, no matter what happens. In other words, the cash value is guaranteed to reach the face amount of the policy by age 100 of the insured. Try living that long and see for yourself. There's an ever-decreasing amount of risk for the company. Not many people know the concept of getting better no matter what. So let's look at the airplane world, again, for help. Imagine we are going to make a very long flight. So we load it with all the fuel it will hold. By the time we use up 80% of the fuel, it's much lighter than at takeoff, yet the engines are still producing the same power all along the flight. Therefore, every mile we fly, the airplane gets more efficient. It gets better no matter what. Just think of how much less food and sleep you need as you age. Insurance is no different. In designing the life insurance policy, the rate makers have taken the advice of the actuaries. Over a long period of time, the actuaries can be pretty accurate. But from time to time, the results can be better or worse than predicted. There are variations in interest earnings, death claims, and operation expenses. These factors affect the dividend scale. You can safely say the real results will never exactly match the illustration provided at the beginning of the policy. But once a dividend is declared, its value is guaranteed from that point on. It can never lose market value in the future. As we've seen with stocks and securities, the market can come and go. This point is extremely important for you to understand. If you don't, then stop the tape and replay this section until you do. When earnings are down in a corporation, it is the function of the stockholders to take up the slack. Now, back to our scene with the All-American Man's policy. He has had it for a few years now, paying his premiums, building his equity. Now the directors ask the accountants, how did we do on Mr. All-America's policy this year? The accountants report that they collected $1.10. After calculating all the expense factors, they found it took only 80 cents to deliver the future death benefit. This means the directors have 30 cents to play with. If they are even semi-smart, and most of them are, they'll prepare for unexpected future risks. So they put 0.025 cents in the contingency fund. This figure does not show up in the cash value statement. This means that directors of the company can now declare a dividend of 27.5 cents. Now, pay attention to this. This dividend is not a taxable event. Remember, the income tax has only been with us since 1913. For some strange reason, we seem to be able to get along just fine without it up until then. In fact, we had budget surpluses, even with the same number of politicians taking up space on Capitol Hill. Life insurance has been around for more than 200 years. The word dividend was used by the insurance industry to describe this dispersal, and it stuck. The correct classification is a return of premium or a return of capital, which is not a taxable event in IRS terminology. How many times do you make money the IRS can't touch? Just this fact alone makes the money more valuable. And getting the better of them for a change just puts a smile on my face. Should the owner use the dividend to buy additional paid-up insurance, the result is an ever-increasing tax-free accumulation of money. By the way, these dividends get bigger and bigger over time. Nelson Nash bought a policy from a major insurance company in 1959, and now the annual dividend is over 10 times the annual premium. The dividends would be larger if he had not used the annual dividend to reduce premiums for the first 15 years he owned the policy. The dividends expand according to what goes in. Someone should have taught him at the start to use the dividends to buy additional paid-up insurance. So far, this is pretty simple stuff. Now, for the complicated part. The life insurance salesperson calls on our all-American young man. If at 29 he is earning $28,500 after taxes, it is reasonable to assume, with advances and raises, he will produce $1,368,000 in income by age 65. The insurance agent points out he will use something like 40% of this income stream to support his own needs. This means $820,800 in income for his family will vanish if he happens to die earlier than expected. The agent says so. If we were to have to buy a machine to produce the same income, we now have to pay about $400,000 in cash for that machine. Now that's how valuable you are to your family, Mr. All-American Man. If you owned such a machine and it was subject to sudden loss of any kind, would you insure it? Mr. All-American Man says, well, by all means. The agent asks, how much would you insure it for? Why, $400,000, of course. To which the agent responds, now we've established your human life value. Let me show you how little you'll have to pay my company to get the right insurance. Now remember, this same all-American man is the one paying 35% of every after-tax dollar to interest. His interest costs almost equal his living expenses. What should he choose, paying down interest or buying life insurance? If you said both, you get the Genius Award for today. If he solved the need for finance through dividend-paying life insurance, he would end up with more life insurance benefit than a company would issue. So he needs to start his first policy now, adding others later. Let me say it again. Our all-American man is going to use his life insurance as his personal finance company. Let that one settle in for a moment. Here's how it works. The all-American man puts $50 a month into life insurance premiums. He must, absolutely must, actively resist these thoughts. I feel insurance poor. I'm worth more dead than alive. Instead, do this. Think about buying a car. Think about a place where you have money tucked away. Pay a visit to your favorite car dealer and fall in love with a car. Go ahead, pick a red sports car. Why wait for a midlife crisis? Now, look at paying for it with a loan from a finance company or a bank. These organizations borrow blocks of money from insurance companies, fragment the blocks, and loan it to consumers who buy cars. Because of this, our all-American man pays $260 a month for a minimum of 48 months for his $10,550 car loan on the Chevy Cavalier. Most people are complaining about insurance premiums and happily paying the much larger amount to the automobile finance company, who got the money from the same pool. Does that make sense to you? If it does not, please rewind the tape and start over. If so, now we're making progress. In the finance company scenario, he's paying a total of $310 to the pool, $50 directly for life insurance premium, and $260 indirectly through a gatekeeper and toll taker. If you could muster up the courage to pay the $310 directly to the life insurance company in the form of premiums for around 4 to 7 years, he could pay cash for the car. Here comes the important part again, so pay close attention. Our all-American man has made a loan to himself from his insurance policy. The insurance agent now needs to make him vividly aware he must pay the loan back. Not only does he have to pay it back, but with interest. Please remember the grocery store and the captive customer. You charge yourself a little extra to help grow the business. Our young man needs to pay at least the going rate of the finance company, even if the insurance policy calls for less. In this case, the payment totals at least $260 a month. Now, this is not money going out of your pile into another pile. It's all your pile. So you make what the finance company would earn, tax-free. If the agent is really good and understands the principles of banking, he'll encourage you to pay $275 a month because the extra dollars will enable your hired help to put more money to work on your behalf. You're going to pay off the policy loan before you run out of payment schedule. To be an honest banker with yourself, you must complete the schedule. Otherwise, you're stealing. If you say, it's my own money and I'm not going to pay any interest at all, or maybe I'm only going to pay 2.9% as seen in television commercials, then you're not acting in your own best interest. Literally, you do not put yourself on the bargain basement shelf. You're worth top dollar. If you don't think so, the agent must remind you of the grocery store and explain it one more time. No one ever got ahead by cheating themselves. Cheating never works anyway, at least long term, unless you're looking for the security of a prison sentence. You have now had an explanation of all the essential principles of banking through the use of dividend-paying life insurance. To understand the infinite part of the infinite banking concept, we need to dig a little deeper. In the example of car financing, the capitalization needs to be greater than just 4 years. Many college business professors estimate it takes at least 7 years for a company to show a profit on a new product. Why not capitalize for at least 7 years premiums on the policy? When you behave in this manner, your system is now self-perpetuating. But why stop there? We're not talking one life insurance policy. This is to be a system of policies. Have you noticed when a grocery store becomes successful in one location, then it opens a store in another location? Banks have branch offices. Barbecue shacks manage to build new shacks just as shabby as the old. There must be a reason for this. Then why not expand your own potential by buying all the life insurance on yourself that companies will issue? But why stop there? Buy policies on all the people who count as an insurable interest. It could be a spouse, son, business partner, almost anyone who looks to you to hand over a picture of a dead president from time to time. Nelson Nash has 40 policies. You could refer to them as branch offices of the First Nash Bank. See how logical this is? While you can start using the infinite banking system within a few years for minor purchases, it will take the average person 20 to 25 years to build a banking system to accommodate all of his needs for finance. That's not as long as it used to be. As Dear Abby said, if you don't do what you want, 20 years will pass anyway. Thus far, we've covered only the technical aspects of creating your own banking system through dividend-paying life insurance. Now we must face the human problems. Don't forget to look for yourself in these descriptions.
Understanding Parkinson's Law.
Northcote Parkinson, who died several years ago, was a British essayist, lecturer, and economist who left us with some valuable observations. In his book, Parkinson's Law, he brilliantly isolates the actions of committees. They tend to major in the minors, spending more time on trivial matters than on the important matters at hand. The individual does not escape his microscope. One ramification of Parkinson's Law states, work expands to meet the time envelope allowed. Be honest. When you have 3 days to finish your tax return, are you through on the first day or at midnight on the third? There's a reason why the post office stays open late on April 15th. But really, you've had 3 months to do the job. Is it ready the first month or the end of the third month? No, panic over tomorrow is more the rule than the exception. Now, when you finish the tax return, you may want a nice glass of wine to relax and celebrate. Recently, you splurged on a fine bottle of French wine. The next time you wanted a glass, the cheaper stuff you once savored just didn't measure up, did it? Another of Parkinson's laws. He says a luxury, once enjoyed, becomes a necessity. Can you remember driving with the windows down before air conditioning? Would you go back? If it weren't for drive-through windows, would you even know how to find the button to roll down the window of your car? An addendum to this law is the fact expenses rise to equal income. Remember when you got your last raise? How long did it take for it to vanish into a pile of bills? Do you even know how you started spending it? So now you're beyond the means you were beyond in the first place. It doesn't have to be this way. Parkinson's law must be overcome daily. If you can't do so, then just go ahead and turn in your walking papers. You're a prisoner to debt. That's the bad news. The good news is, if you can beat Parkinson's law, you'll win by default. Your peers can't do it, and everything you do in the financial world is compared with what they're doing. So, simply by living within your means, you'll put yourself ahead financially. Parkinson once told a story about a British government official who served during World War I. Young civil servants used to bustle into his office, having had another thought. "But excuse me, sir, what is Rule 6? Rule 6 is as follows: don't take yourself too seriously. Once more the youth would be at the door with his hand on the doorknob and would turn again as a new idea struck him. "But, sir," he would ask, "what are the other rules?" "Young man," would come the reply, "there are no other rules." So in all seriousness, avoid committees. Do work based on when it comes in and not when it goes out. And keep life simple.
Willie Sutton's Law.
Now, you must face Willie Sutton's Law. If you're a history or trivia buff, you'll remember Willie Sutton as a notorious bank robber. When asked why he robs banks, he said, "That's where they keep the money." Sounds reasonable enough. Why rob a place with no money? So Sutton's Law is formulated thusly: wherever wealth is accumulated, someone will try to steal it. Willie did not invent this activity. He was just a stellar practitioner of the art. The phenomenon has been with us since the beginning of time. Theft was the first labor-saving idea. Don't produce anything, just steal what someone else has produced. Question: who has the stickiest fingers in the world? If you answered the Internal Revenue Service, you go to the head of the class. If you don't learn how to defend yourself from these folks, they're going to eat your lunch. Friedrich Bastiat, a French economist and statesman who once wrote an essay entitled The Law in 1850, states it this way: see if the law takes what belongs to one person and gives it to another, to whom it does not belong. See if the law benefits one citizen at the expense of another, by doing what the citizen cannot do without committing a crime. It is legal plunder. Now, should you be the least bit effective in accumulating wealth, and I hope you will be, there will be an IRS agent at your mahogany door with his hand out, and you'd better give him what he asks for, because he can take the fancy door and everything behind it, even you. And Club Fed is not what it's cut out to be. There are no pleasant prisons. Willie Sutton's Law is active. Government is not capable of producing anything. It gets all its sustenance from the productive element of society. Looking at it from a natural standpoint, government is a parasite. It lives off productive taxpayers. Our government is smarter. When they sense rebellion, they always resort to exceptions to the rule. They invented qualified pension plans, HR 10 plans, 401k plans, IRAs, and the like. I remind you, what caused this burden is the income tax law, which did not exist, as we know it, until 1913. Before then, our country had surpluses in the national budget, and the world got along very well. But after its adoption, the American public now noted it could vote itself a benefit through its representatives in Washington and send the bill to those mysterious rich people. Economic problems have always been best solved by people freely contracting with one another and with government limited to enforcing those contracts. Now here's how to drop out of the taxation loop: through the magnificent idea of dividend-paying whole life insurance. It's been around for more than 200 years. It has stood the test of time. It is not compulsory. It is not a government-sponsored idea. It preceded the income tax by nearly a century. It's private property, and only people who care about others who are dear to them participate. What a great group of people to associate with in business.
The Golden Rule.
Those who have the gold make the rules. We have a tendency to chuckle when we see this perversion of a principle learned in childhood. We should do unto others as we would have them do unto us. Let's turn it one more notch. Let's look favorably at true capitalism. The common man has become so infatuated with living for today that the importance of saving, of creating capital, is all but a lost value. The American savings rate is miserably low. In fact, in recent years, it has been negative. People are in debt up to their eyeballs. No wonder they're blind. As a result, someone else must provide the capital necessary to sustain our way of life. This strategy carries a very high cost, and we all suffer the consequences. It all begins with faulty premises. A number of years back, Panasonic wanted to build a plant in Mexico to solve the obvious equation. But in the infinite wisdom of the Mexican government at that time, if you wanted to establish a business there, Mexicans had to own 51% of the business. That majority meant Mexicans controlled the business. The typical Japanese strategy runs like this. You put money into a business, and you should expect to lose money for 5 years. When you start making money, you should plow it all back into the business for 5 more years. Only then should you expect to take money out of the business. But these Mexicans were like super athletes. They wanted a signing bonus. Otherwise, they weren't going to play. Do I have to tell you what happened? Panasonic pulled out of Mexico and went elsewhere. They found a place where capital is appreciated and managed with care. Who won and who lost in this story? Panasonic had the gold, so they made the rules. It can be no other way. Capital is a responsibility and should be treated with great respect. If not, everyone loses. When you have a large amount of cash on hand, all sorts of good opportunities will appear. You can also negotiate favorable purchase prices. So many of life's problems would disappear if this understanding were generally accepted and practiced widely among the population. A word of caution is in order. Do not think everyone must conduct his financial affairs in this manner. It's not a numbers game. Then why is there general despair in our country regarding financial matters? Why are people paying through the nose for capital? Why the feeling of helplessness and futility? It all begins with faulty premises. Let me try to explain it this way. To further compound the problem, there is a prevailing tendency in the current crop of Americans to look to government solutions. I don't have any money to buy a home, go to college, buy food, care for my health, maintain the lifestyle I desire, etc. So, there should be some sort of government program to provide these things for me. I have a right to them. It is the right to rights generation. You just cannot think that way and succeed. Big Daddy is not going to take care of you forever, and he never gives money without strings attached. You can take that to the bank. Always be suspicious of freebies and things that are too good to be true. I know I'm telling you that it will take a few years to make this concept work. That's realism, not magic. It's freedom, not enslavement.
Nelson's ideas here, some would call revolutionary. I would call them essential.
This is a concept that you can practice for the rest of your life and don't have to worry about retirement. It'll provide the income that you can do whatever you want and work however hard you want or work however little you want and still have the income and not worry about retirement.
It's a process. It's not something that you learn in one weekend. It's a different way to live. And if you learn the process, you can make it work for you. You can figure out ways to have it fit into your lifestyle.
This just kind of opened the door for me to realize that no, I can get control of my life again, get control of my finances. I can help my family by teaching them what I've learned, and my friends.
If you really want to know what to do with your money and how to maximize your wealth and value you have in the world and for your family, for your kids, for charitable organizations, things that you care for, you got to get involved in Nelson's program because it's the most exciting information I've ever found financial.
The arrival syndrome.
Now we turn our attention to probably the most devastating matter we've examined thus far, the arrival syndrome. This phenomenon has limited the achievements of mankind more than anything else. When this thing infects us, we stop growing, stop learning, we rot. We turn off or tune out the ability to receive inspiration because we already know all there is to know. Remember the late Ed Deming, a brilliant business consultant and a dedicated one. He was still working at age 94. He was the person who taught the Japanese the concept of quality. Business schools all over our country fell in love with his teachings after the Japanese showed the world the results. But shortly after World War II, Ed tried to teach American businesses his ideas. They turned up their noses at him with the answer, "We're already doing that." No, they weren't doing that. They were severely afflicted with the arrival syndrome. We know all there is to know on the subject, so you can't teach us anything. So Ed went to Japan and sold his ideas. The rest is history, and American manufacturers paid the price for their arrogance. When Ed came back to America, he was hailed as a genius. He was finally a prophet in his hometown. Today, many American business schools sing the praises of Ed Deming. Daniel Borstein, the historian, stated it this way: "The greatest obstacle to discovering the shape of the earth, the contents, and the oceans was not ignorance, it was the illusion of knowledge." The hardest job is getting people to open their minds and take an in-depth look at just exactly what is going on in the business world. Then you have to teach them how to see the reality of what is there. Keep listening and learn how to change your life.
Use it or lose it.
Even the Bible supports this statement. Mark 4:25, "For he that hath, to him shall be given, and he that hath not, from him shall be taken, even that which he hath." Here we arrive at the last of the human considerations which must be faced if we are to be successful in becoming our own banker. This thought is closely allied to the one we looked at last, the arrival syndrome. Please note all the points we've addressed so far. Parkinson's Law, Willie Sutton's Law, the Golden Rule, the Arrival Syndrome, and now Use It or Lose It have to do with overcoming human nature. All human progress is predicated on this matter. It is not easy to conquer, but it is absolutely necessary. It is like recognizing the fact we must take care of our bodies or face the consequences. Just go ahead and eat that cheeseburger every day and watch your high blood pressure pass your IQ faster than you can say supersize me. The arrival syndrome produces a comfort zone that causes people to lapse into their old way of doing things. A lifetime of accumulated information determines how you conduct yourself. Just because you may be working with dated or even false information is beside the point. Recently, it was revealed that for years it had been assumed we needed 8 glasses of water a day, yet there was no study to prove it. Just decades of false information repeated again. With the infinite banking concept, we are like the Christopher Columbus of banking. The pool of money is round, not flat, and you can sail your own ship around the world of finance. The infinite banking concept is dealing with a totally different paradigm. This amounts to a personal monetary system. In the September 1993 issue of Fortune magazine, the story of economic value added, EVA, was reported. Many large corporations had achieved phenomenal success when they adopted EVA. All the concept amounts to is recognition of the fact that their capital had a cost, as well as money that they had borrowed from banks. These companies could have achieved even better results if they had simply bought large amounts of high-priced, dividend-paying life insurance. Now, when they needed to make a large capital investment, they could make policy loans, set up repayment schedules that had greater than market interest rates, and stick to the schedule. A large company with, say, 35,000 employees would have a continuous stream of death claims as a bonus. Among those corporations adopting EVA was Coca-Cola, which, by the way, was on the cover of the March 1996 issue of Fortune as the most admired company in America. Nevertheless, a number of companies did not achieve spectacular results. There are a number of reasons for this. A follow-up story in Fortune explained why. They don't make it a way of life. Most managers try to implement EVA too fast. The boss lacks conviction. Managers fuss too much. Training gets short shrift. Accepting a totally new point of reference means developing new habits. In talking with members of the Infinite Banking Concept think tank, we continue to notice that many are still caught up thinking it's a function of interest rates. This is a fatal error. It has to do with recognizing how money is flowing. You must pay interest to yourself. Anytime you cut out paying interest to others and direct the same market rate of interest to an entity you own and control, and that's subject to minimal taxation, you're on the road to success. Just like EVA, to be effective, the infinite banking concept must become a way of life. You must use it or lose it. Creating the entity. Let's just be honest about how life insurance companies think. They're looking for ways to predict how long you'll live, or, in their perspective, how long you'll pay premiums. They have mortality tables based on people who buy insurance that give them a pretty accurate picture. Keep in mind, this is not the population as a whole. They're not interested in people who don't buy insurance. Those people are on their own to figure out their own lifespans. The policy engineers, called actuaries, have constructed mortality tables based on 10 million lives and a lifespan of 100 years. Can you guess what's happened to life expectancy since 1958? Yes, there's been an increase in longevity. Life expectancy for men in America in 1937 was 61 years. Now, the figure for our all-American young man is mid-70s, but we're still using age 65 for retirement purposes. Does this make sense? For your own good, remove the age 65 from your mind. There's no legitimate reason for using such fallacious thinking to plan your life. John Templeton recommends that everyone should plan on working until at least age 70. Picture in your mind a chart. You'll find it on
page 36
in the Infinite Banking Concept book. The chart is your basic pie you will recall from high school. It shows that out of 1,000 people, 900 are alive at age 45, and 75% of these die past age 65. Let's look at different life insurance purchase plans. Imagine a line along which policies get more involved. One end of the scale is single premium insurance. On the other extreme is term insurance. We'll talk about these two and everything in between. In creating life insurance plans, all calculations by the rate makers begin with the cost, in a single sum, of providing a plan to cover a whole life. It is called single premium life insurance. The insured plunks down one lump sum of money, and insurance is guaranteed for the rest of his life. It's possible to buy life insurance this way, but it's not a common occurrence. In contrast, term insurance means simply renting the single premium insurance for a limited time. Perceptive people noticed this approach differed from other forms of insurance. They bought fire insurance, and it paid a benefit if a fire occurred during the period covered. They buy accident insurance, and it paid a benefit if an accident occurred during the period covered. There's a very strong probability that neither of the above would ever occur. But death for a person is not an if, it's a when. One man, by the way, was told to give up tobacco by his doctor. He refused, saying, "At my age, something's got to kill you." Life insurance companies, being good business folk, responded to pressures from the marketplace. They created a plan for purchasing the single premium policy over a period of time with a payment schedule. The payments began with the current age of the insured and extended to the theoretical lifespan of 100 years. They called the plan Ordinary Life. A gross misnomer. When you classify something, it's based on major characteristics. Besides being far from ordinary, the animal they created had much more in common with banking than life insurance. When you look at the possibilities, it's obvious. The banking qualities supersede the death benefit as an asset. A better name would be a banking system with a kick at the end. The whole idea of the infinite banking concept started with the realization that there's a huge amount of nonsense going on in the marketplace because of the misclassification of things. This is not new, nor is it unique to the financial world. For instance, take the case of the common potato. In the late 1500s, the conquistadors of Spain were down in South America looking for gold. They didn't find much gold, but they did find a funny-looking plant and took it back to Europe. But no one would mess with it because botanists correctly identified the plant as belonging to the plant family Solanaceae. This family has a large number of plants with names like, for instance, deadly nightshade, and that name is not misleading. So it was assumed the potato was poisonous. By the way, the sprouts and the green parts of the potato plant are poisonous. Don't eat them. They'll give you the worst case of GIs you've ever seen. Eat too many and they will kill you. By the way, the value of 1 year's crop of potatoes in the world now exceeds the value of all the gold found in the Western Hemisphere. So the Spaniards really did find gold in Peru, but it was not in the form they were expecting. Good ideas need time to grow, and bad ones often die slowly, causing a lot of pain in their wake. The tomato came to us from Mexico, and it too suffered the same misunderstanding. That inveterate gardener and bold gastronome Thomas Jefferson introduced the tomato to the dinner table. If you've figured out that it also comes from the plant family Solanaceae, then we're buying at the potato bar. Returning to life insurance policies, suppose the insured is 25 years old and buys an ordinary life policy. Since the theoretical lifespan is 100 years, then that would be a 75-year payment plan. Payment could be shortened by buying a life paid up at age 65. For the same 25-year-old, this would be a 40-pay plan. It could be further shortened to a 30-pay plan or 20-pay plan. The shorter the payment period, the better suited it is for the purpose of the infinite banking concept, the way to become your own banker. When using this type of insurance to solve your need for banking, it is best to select a basic policy in the middle of the scale. An example is ordinary life or life paid up at age 65. Then, add a paid-up additions rider to it. This will de-emphasize the immediate death benefit but accentuate the banking qualities, or in other terms, the cash values. The irony is, doing it this way will result in providing more death benefit at the point where death will probably occur than any other plan. The base policy and the paid-up additions rider both pay dividends. These should be used to buy additional paid-up insurance, which gives more meaning to the infinite qualities of the system. In describing this policy design, some people have called putting a paid-up additions rider on the ordinary life policy overfunding the policy. Maybe that term can increase understanding, but the objective should be simply to get as much money as possible into the policy. It all reminds me of things such as when Christopher Columbus started his journey westward from Europe to get to the East. His destination in particular was India. When his party finally arrived at some islands in the Caribbean, they met some people they'd never seen before. They called them Indians. They weren't, but the name stuck. For that matter, cowboys should probably really be called horseboys, because that's the animal most of them spent their time with. There are probably thousands of such examples of misclassification we run into every day. Be careful. They can limit our thinking and lead us to wrong conclusions. Words are powerful things.
How to start building your own banking system.
Remember the mountain of interest the all-American man is paying? Now, picture all the ways you can have the use of a car. There are 5 of them. Let's assume the car will be replaced every 4 years, and the financing package each time will be $10,550 at 8.5% interest for 48 months. We'll be looking at a 44-year time frame to compare the results of the methods. Method A. The first and most expensive method is to lease the cars each year for 44 years. It's somewhat difficult to calculate the total cost in this case. We must resort to logic and reason and use the second method as a starting point. Method B. The second method is using a commercial bank or finance company to do the job. Calculating the cost in this example is simple. You pay $260 a month for 528 months, which equals $137,280. At the end of each 4-year period, you have a 4-year-old car to use as a trade-in on the next car. Reason tells you the first method would be more costly than this one. Otherwise, no one would ever purchase a car. Everyone would lease. To do so means they would have to lease from an owner. Is the owner a fool? Not many car dealers are struggling in low-rent apartments, I can assure you. They may own them, but they don't live there. Is he going to make some money on the leasing deal? You bet. Therefore, let's assign an arbitrary 44-year cost of leasing at $175,000. By the way, the annual equivalent of $260 a month is $3,030. Method C, the third method, is to pay cash for each new car every 4 years. This results in a total cost of $116,050, which is a $20,000 savings over financing. In this scenario, you defer the use of the first new car for 4 years, while you save the money. Then you immediately start accumulating money again in the same savings account to prepare for the next purchase. This is the classical sinking fund method of financing the ongoing need for something. Notice there's not much difference between the three methods discussed thus far. Also, be aware, at this point, we've probably covered 90% of all the population of the U.S. in the first three methods. It should be noted, too, we're going the right way on the graph as we move to the right on the scale of methods, but midstream America's going the other way. Leasing is up 35% in the last 5 years. Method D. The fourth method requires some explanation. The first three methods have not addressed the need for capitalization. A pool of money must be accumulated before using it for your own car purchases. You also need to grow it large enough to accommodate the need of some other folks too. Remember the grocery store described earlier? If the grocery store is only large enough to serve your own needs, you won't have much of a successful business. Several years ago, Dartmouth professor James Bryan Quinn estimates that corporations expect to take at least 7 years to get back a profit on their new investment. Taking a clue from him, why not capitalize the system for 7 years and at a somewhat higher annual amount, say $5,000? You accumulate money on a monthly basis in a savings account and buy a certificate of deposit at someone else's bank in the amount of $5,000 with a yield of 5.5% interest. Show me someone who will do this for 7 years just to build a banking system, and I'll show you someone who has conquered Parkinson's law. You will win by default in comparison with your peers because they cannot discipline themselves to do so. The downside of this method is that you will also attract the attention of the Willie Sutton types, the Internal Revenue Service, and they'll take 30% of the earnings, which means you'll earn 4% after taxes. Now, it's time to start the self-financing of car purchases from the system. Step 1. Do not let the salesperson know you have this much cash. Just the scent of that much cash money could dangerously overtax his system, and it could cause permanent damage when you insist on buying the Chevy Cavalier instead of the BMW. Now, continue to fund the monthly savings account. Each year, you withdraw $3,030 from it to purchase a new CD. Here, you're playing honest banker with yourself, but you're using someone else's bank to do it. The dividends of the bank are going to the stockholders of the bank. You only earn the interest the bank is paying. There are several characters in the play who must be considered. Picture a boardroom table with the following people seated around it. 1. The stockholder or owner of the bank. He earns dividends. The CD holder, number 2, earns interest. 3. Administrators at the bank, hired help, earn salaries. And number 4, the borrower of money, an absolute necessity in the whole scene. Nothing happens without him. He pays for the whole works above. Method E. The fifth method is using dividend-paying life insurance as a depository and capital builder. Here, you put the same $5,000 a year into high-premium life insurance with a mutual life insurance company. After the 7 years of capitalization, you withdraw dividends in the amount required to pay cash for the car. This process does not involve policy loans. In order to play honest banker with yourself, you must pay the same amount you would have to pay to a finance company or commercial bank. In this case, $3,030 a year, the same as the person using Method D, the savings CD method. The results favor Method D, saving the money through CDs, up through year 14. But from that point on, the difference favors Method E, life insurance. There is a very simple explanation for this effect. Every time a person buys a life insurance policy, he is starting a business from scratch. There is the inevitable delay getting a business started. The life insurance company is nothing more than an administrator of the plan the policy owner purchased. If you've seen an executive vice president at a life insurance company and an executive vice president at a bank, they could change jobs every 6 months, and no one would know the difference. Both methods, D and E, are all dependent on borrowers to make their business successful, and the market sets the rate, not Alan Greenspan at the Federal Reserve Bank. In the life insurance method, the policy owner is earning both interest and dividends. There are no stockholders. The cost of administration in both cases is a wash. You've successfully cut out the middleman and taken his money back. Taking a look at the cash accumulation at retirement time, there's $258,927 in Method D, the CD method. But in the life insurance method, there is $964,638. Now subtract the little number from the big number. The difference, $705,710, is what went to the stockholders of the bank in Method D, if it was accumulated on a tax-deferred basis for a 44-year period of time. To make all this money, the banker had to go through the agony of the bank charter. But hardly anyone takes this into consideration. You are just now discovering the real power of the life insurance method. One great comparison is the retirement income from each method. Assuming a withdrawal of $50,000 per year from each, the CD account is out of money in 5 years and 8 months. But the life insurance policy is still growing, although $50,000 is being withdrawn from dividends. Hence, the income is not a taxable event until all the premium cost has been recovered. Beyond that point, a switch to policy loans can be made, and that too is not income taxable. Not that we would want to cut out the IRS. Imagine your great-aunt Agatha. She dies in the 65th year of the banking system, which would be age 85, after a long, wonderful life. And you have dutifully visited her in the nursing home and remain in the will. She has withdrawn $650,000 on dividend income to live in Happy Acres Rest Home and still left you $1,365,057. The lady has planned for her own future and guaranteed she will always be your favorite aunt, no matter how crotchety she may have become. This is the essence of what the infinite banking concept is all about, recovering the interest one normally pays to some banking institution and then lending it to others, so the policy owner makes what a banking institution does. It's like building an environment in the airplane world where you have a perpetual tailwind instead of a perpetual headwind. Simple, isn't it? Controlling the environment is much more productive than trying to make the airplane fly 5 miles an hour faster.
Expanding the system to accommodate all income.
It always sounds a bit strange to say premiums and income should match. Let's start with a very basic fact. Doesn't all your money go through someone else's bank? It seems a little ridiculous, but our all-American man is depositing all of his paycheck in a bank and then writing checks for 34.5% of every dollar to pay interest alone back to someone else's banking system. He'll never see that money again. It's gone forever. Why does he behave this way? Because no one has ever explained to him a better way of doing things. Once a pattern of life is learned in a culture, it is nigh unto impossible to change. His paradigm is fixed, set in concrete. The peer pressure and conventional wisdom is overwhelming. But that doesn't mean it can't be done. When he builds a banking system through life insurance, makes loans to himself to buy automobiles, and pays back to his policies the same payment he would have to pay a banking institution, then he makes what the bank would have made off of him. And it's all done on a tax-free accumulation basis. The interest he pays never leaves his control. If this is done consistently throughout life, it will make a tremendous difference in his financial picture. So far, we have only looked at what will happen if we create a system to finance just one automobile every 4 years. Why not expand the system by starting another policy that will finance the other automobile in the family? This will, of course, require the capitalization period of 7 years at the rate of $5,000 a year. But at the end of the time, we've kissed the automobile financing business goodbye forever. In time, the total cash values in all policies are adequate enough to take the next step, self-insuring the automobiles for comprehensive and collision coverage. Please note, I did not say liability insurance. That's the stuff that protects you in a lawsuit. Comprehensive and collision covers damage to your car. Why not do it through life insurance policies? After all, what did the automobile insurance companies do to get into their businesses? First, they got actuarial data to determine the probabilities of a car accident and its attendant costs. Then they got rate makers to determine how much should be charged for the coverage. Next, they turned it all over to attorneys to draw contracts. Later, they had insurance agents call on you to see if you'd like to insure your car with their company. The auto insurance company has put the premiums to work in the same places as the life insurance company. They also have to pay claims and administrative costs. And they also pay dividends to whoever owns the company, just like a life insurance company. Can you see, once you get a substantial base of cash values in life insurance, you have all the elements of an automobile insurance company except pricing of the product. All you have to do is self-insure to find out how much more you should put into life policies to assume this risk. That's easy. Just get a quote from some prominent auto insurer on your make and model of car. If the quote is $750 a year for a $500 deductible, don't pay your life policies just that amount. Pay them $1,000 for zero deductible. Remember, we're not into discounting ourselves. If you had an accident, you were going to have to pay the $500 deductible first anyway. Expand this system enough over a period of time, and one day you can finance your own home. Beware of government programs. The government does not help. It is axiomatic that any government-sponsored program will always accomplish the opposite of the stated intent. Check any of them out over an extended period of time to see for yourself. When government creates a problem, read onerous taxation, and then turns around and creates an exception to the problem they created, read tax-sheltered retirement plans, aren't you just a little bit suspicious that you're being manipulated? One day, when Social Security needs propping up, these shelter plans could be in danger of taxation. Life insurance has avoided this plague for 200 years. Which is more likely to keep out of the reach of the long arm of the IRS? You guessed it, insurance. No matter how much they try to disguise it with euphemisms, socialism does not work. All government programs should be required to be marked with a skull and crossbones label. They're poison and eventually kill your ability to think. I can't think of a worse thing to do to a fellow human being than destroy his mind. The infinite banking system helps take you out of the taxation grind and gives you control of your money. Pay your fair share and pay what you have to, but the more you keep of the money you earn, the richer you'll be, all from your own hard work.
The cost of acquisition.
In a recent magazine advertisement, the company was making a point. It took 7 people to buy the hammer it showed. The hammer cost $17. The time of the 7 people cost $100. It's the first time I've ever seen the matter addressed so clearly. Even more strange is that all businesses recognize that financing of the business is necessary, but they never address the cost of the acquisition of finance. It is a very significant factor in a business venture, and its cost is often startling. It's the same phenomenon as the real cost of the hammer. Charitable organizations have to be aware of this factor. Free money isn't free. Donors have to be persuaded to participate. In many cases, they spend 85 cents to raise $1. The most efficient ones spend at least 15 cents. If you're in command of the banking function, you do not have to go through all this expensive erosion. The infinite banking concept does exactly that. You can make timely decisions. There's no cost of acquisition. You're in competition with others who must go through the financial erosion. Guess who wins?
But I can get a higher rate of return.
When first exposed to the infinite banking concept, a person will almost always think and often voice the thought, but I can get a higher rate of return by investing in whatever. Unfortunately, that person has not understood the message. We are not addressing the yield of an investment. We are discussing how you finance anything you buy. It's always better to finance it through your bank than out of your pocket. Picture, if you will, a chart. This can be seen on page 70 of the Infinite Banking Concept book. To demonstrate this principle, suppose A invests $100,000 for 1 year and earns 20%, gross yield $20,000. Less taxes, 30%, $6,000. Net yield, $14,000. Suppose B builds cash values of $100,000 in his own infinite banking concept, dividend-paying life insurance plan. Then borrows from his system at 8% interest and makes the same investment. Gross yield, $20,000. Less interest paid to his banking system, $8,000. Taxable gain, $12,000. Less taxes, 30%, $3,600. Net yield, $8,400. But in this case, you must remember who the characters are in the play. B also owns the banking system to which interest is paid and earns the $8,000 on a non-taxed basis. So the total results are like this. Net yield from the investment, $8,400. Net yield from his banking system, $8,000. Total yield, $16,400. You've gained $2,400 over method A. Is that clear? You made more money by keeping your own interest and sheltering it from taxation as it accumulates. The principle applies to any investment you might make, so there's no way that a person can get a higher rate of return by ignoring the banking process.
An even distribution of age classes.
Here's an example of an elderly couple, retired from business, who was introduced to the idea of establishing substantial life insurance plans for their 4 grandchildren, 2 girls and 2 boys. The grandparents put $2,000 per year of premium into policies on each of the grandchildren, retaining ownership until their death, with ownership going to their 2 sons. The sons are now grandparents and together have a total of 8 grandchildren. They have diligently followed the example established by their parents by purchasing life insurance on each newborn in the amount of $2,000 annual premium. Premiums are planned for a payment period of 22 years, approximately 1 generation. Of course, the policies are designed to emphasize cash accumulation and de-emphasize death benefit at the outset. So after 22 years, the base premium can be paid by dividends from the policy itself from that point forward. Surplus dividends are buying additional paid-up insurance. The Mutual Life Insurance Company estimates the cash value at the grandson's age 22 to be $101,360. With no further outlay, the cash value at age 70 would be $4,104,852. If the insured wants, dividend withdrawals can be used for retirement purposes in the amount of $225,000 per year and can be sustained at that level as long as the insured lives. Does this sound like a good savings and retirement plan so far? Depending on inflation, of course, but $225,000 per year will buy a lot of reading glasses. Suppose he dies at age 85. At that time, he's recovered all the money paid into the policy, $44,000, plus $3,556,000 in income, and will still deliver $6,375,923 in death benefits to the next generation. I think you must admit this is impressive, but by exercising your imagination a bit, greater results can be achieved. If the policy owner at the insured's age 22 begins to finance automobile purchases and obeys the principles previously addressed in this book, then the cash values will be greater, and so will the retirement income figures. If he finances his house purchases and pay back closing costs, plus the monthly payments to amortize the mortgage, then the figures balloon even more. Do you understand why the concept is named infinite? In the Infinite Banking Concept book, you can check all the charts and numbers on
pages 73 through 74.
If you need a book for reference, you can get one from our website, www.infinitebanking.org. There are a lot of advantages to this insurance plan. It covers multiple generations, and it promotes long-range planning. Underwriting problems are minimized and tax-free buildup of cash values are accrued over a long period of time. Outlay is very, very small compared with the ultimate yield. The generation paying the premiums can most easily afford them. When death benefits do occur, the system becomes self-sustaining. It precludes any need for Social Security, and retirement income is assured. Estate planning is greatly simplified. Wealth mentality is transferred to succeeding generations over a long period of time to produce consistent understanding. They're learning a process, not buying a product. It promotes the understanding of what stewardship is all about. Money won't buy happiness, but poor stewardship of money will steal happiness from you.
Equipment financing.
Now that we've established a dividend-paying life insurance policy as a banking system, let's see how this program can help you in your business. To get started, all you have to do is select an appropriate plan of life insurance with a quality dividend-paying life insurance company and put some money into it. You must build the capitalization phase over a period of time, such as 4 to 10 years. By now, you should know full well that additional merchandise, capital, will improve your profitability. Neither should someone complain about additional capital, premiums, paid into a life insurance policy. There are no licenses required and no customers to seek out. No accounting, no engineering. It has all been done beforehand by the life insurance company, your hired help. You surely don't get those advantages when starting up any other business. Suppose this 30-year-old man who's in the logging business adopts such a plan and puts $40,000 of premium per year into his banking system for 4 years. The policy he's using is a life paid up at age 65 with a premium of $15,000 per year and a paid-up rider of $25,000. Beginning the 5th year, he stops paying the $25,000 paid-up rider, and no further premiums are required because the current dividend, $6,500, plus surrender of some of the paid-up insurance, will pay the base policy premium, which is $15,000 per year from now on. Note the death benefit at the end of the 4th year is $1,684,787, and compare it with the end of the 5th year, $1,651,077. The total difference is about $33,000. The difference between the numbers is the amount of paid-up insurance surrendered to pay the annual $15,000 premium, resulting in no out-of-pocket outlay. His administrators, the life insurance company, lend the money out to other various places. At his retirement time, income taxation does not occur until the amount withdrawn exceeds the premiums paid into the policy. Congratulations, you've achieved the goals of our founding fathers. No taxation without representation, which is the case of most of us unless you have your own lobbyist. The insured is now age 66 and is considering retirement. He can begin to withdraw $92,000 per year in dividends from his policy to meet his needs. He could decide to draw a larger income from dividend credits, but doing so would diminish the capital base and the ultimate death benefit. Conversely, he could decide to draw a smaller income from dividends, in which case the capital base would increase, and so would the residual death benefit. Under the scenario depicted so far, the income will become income taxable when the amount of income received exceeds his premiums paid in this case, $160,000. No matter how you look at it, the above means living well, unless the price of bread goes up to $50 a loaf, which is unlikely. On the other hand, my grandmother never got used to paying $1 for a loaf of bread, so it's all relative. In the middle of smiling over his good fortune, our young man in the logging business sees the forest and the trees. It dawns on him that he's paying $16,000 a month for the equipment used to haul logs. The finance company, otherwise known as the gatekeeper and toll taker, and perhaps even the troll under the bridge, is borrowing the money to lend him from insurance companies. So the money he's paying for insurance is lent to financial organizations who loan the money back to the insured by adding a surcharge and retailing it. Well, it's the equivalent of buying groceries at Winn-Dixie when you own Piggly Wiggly. Now, we know we are dealing with a savvy young man in the logging business, so he asks his life insurance agent, "Can I finance a logging truck from my cash values?" Of course he can. He outranks all possible borrowers in access to the pool of money that must be lent to enable the life insurance company to pay the death claims that are promised. Back to our future Bill Gates. When he buys a truck this time, he doesn't use the finance company. He calls his gopher at the insurance company and asks, Can I borrow $52,600 from my policy to finance a new truck? His policy has a cash value of $157,363. This is the amount of money the life insurance company must lend to someone in order to make the plan of insurance work. Of course he can borrow $52,600. Pay close attention to this point. It is vital you understand he must set up a loan repayment plan. No cheating. The plan equals or exceeds what he would have to pay the finance company he was using. His life insurance agent should coach him at this point. The policy loan interest rate is 8%, but we're not going to play the old game. We're going to call the finance company you were using and ask them what you would have to pay if you financed it with them. Their answer determines what you're going to have to pay. If you insist on cutting yourself a deal, please listen to the grocery store story one more time. Hear it as often as you need to in order to find out how you may be cheating yourself in this and even in other areas. The extra cash flow becomes more capital in the system and enables your gophers at the life insurance company to lend more money to all those other borrowers. This extra money does not go to the general portfolio of the company. It goes into his system, the one administered by the company, on your behalf. The debt is being reduced to zero at the end of 4 years. Remember, the policy loan provision calls for interest at 8%. But he's repaying at 15%, the same amount he was paying the finance company. What happens is this. The cash value is now $1,988,254 at his age 65, compared with $1,517,320 when the insurance company lent all the cash value to others. He made $470,934 by financing just one truck with his own bank. He got to have his truck and drive it too. The gophers of the life insurance company had nothing to do with this phenomenon. It was all on account of what the policy owner did. Note the retirement income has gone up to $125,000 per year. Again, assuming death at age 85, he's recovered his capital input plus $2,034,800 and still delivered $3,119,289 to his beneficiary. Now, we have the policy owner's attention. He says, that's amazing. Can I finance 2 trucks through my bank? Assuming the same $52,600 financing package on each, of course he can. Again, there is $157,363 available for loans. If he makes a loan of $105,200 and buys 2 trucks and pays back twice as much as he paid in the previous example, then his cash value at age 65 becomes $2,459,578. He has earned about $500,000 more by running an additional truck through the system. His retirement income has increased to $150,000 per year, and his death benefit at age 85 is $3,992,624, up nearly another million. He's even more amazed and asks, can I finance 3 trucks through this system? In this case, he's trying to do too much financing with too little capital. He would be much wiser to establish a branch office to his banking system by capitalizing another policy. Nevertheless, it is theoretically possible to make 3 loans with this one policy. The end result adds up to nearly $3 million in cash value at age 65. The dividend income at retirement time is up to $175,000 per year, resulting in recovering his capital input, plus over $2.5 million in total income and a death benefit at age 85 of about $5 million. Again, this dramatic improvement in results is not because of how the insurance company made superior investments, it's because of how the policy owner behaved. At this point, consideration should be given to how to improve the results even further. Question: can a truck be financed in the 2nd year? Yes, and buy furniture and toss it in the back to take home. You can finance anything you can afford. Just make sure you play honest banker with yourself. Don't steal. Another improvement can be achieved by backdating the policy for 6 months. Most all companies allow this. Pay the initial annual premium now, but ask the company for a policy date 6 months ago. This way, it will be only 18 months before being able to use the policy to cut the finance company out of the pattern. The earlier you start a life policy, the longer it stays in force, the more efficient it gets. At this point, we turn to the matter of ownership of the policy or policies. His company, a corporation, should not own it. He can improve wealth-building effects of the whole scenario by owning the policy himself, purchasing the trucks himself, and leasing the trucks to his corporation. Again, no bargains. He needs to make sure he has charged a lease payment as high as possible. He can get a figure from some leasing company that leases similar equipment. By doing so, he can have an interest deduction for the policy loans used to purchase the equipment, since the loans are for a business purpose. He can depreciate the trucks over a reasonable time, and he has a captive customer. Finally, go back and take a look at the stream of retirement income, $92,000 per year when the insurance company managed the policy. This income stream becomes income taxable when it exceeds the cost basis, which is $160,000. Now, look at the stream of income after he finances over half of his equipment, $225,000 per year. This income, too, becomes taxable after he recovers his cost basis. But the good news is the cost basis has increased to $946,184. He gets all this back tax-free. Can you see, the more business he runs through the system, the more income he can enjoy at retirement time. There can be even further improvements in the performance of the system. Just consider, at age 66, he might sell all his equipment to someone just starting out in the logging business and finance the future purchases for the new business owner. After all, he has over $3,500,000 readily available for use in such purposes. In fact, he can make a very good living during retirement just leasing equipment to any number of businesses. This is what we mean by infinite banking system. It only stops where your imagination stops. Becoming your own banker can set you free financially. The infinite banking concept helps you create your own financial system that will not be subject to Wall Street or world politics. You will be free to enjoy your life, buy your cars and homes, and enjoy your golden years in comfort. But you have to do it. No one can do it for you. It is a new way of approaching money and finance, a way that is very different from current philosophies. You must determine in your own mind that no one can direct your future or your finances better than you can. And it is a system of prosperity that you can easily pass down to your children and grandchildren, assuring your family of the good life. Start today. Now, let us review. The first step is to get your mind geared toward creating a financial system. The second step is to find a good coach for your financial team, a good agent familiar with the infinite banking concept. Will be listed on our website, www.infinitebanking.org. Number 3, capitalize the system. That means get some money in there. If you work at it, you can start your own bank in 5 to 7 years. Fourth, exercise discipline. You must set your financial goals and stick to them. Curb your spending and go wild with savings. Number 5, reap the rewards. You can live richly using your own earnings to free you financially. More about the infinite banking concept can be learned through our DVD and VHS seminars and through the book, or you can attend one of the live seminars that Nelson conducts throughout the United States. Notes: the Infinite Banking Concept is a teaching organization and is not affiliated with any life insurance organization, and in no way implies a person will be guaranteed results comparable to anything shown in this book. No more than a school or professor at a school can guarantee a person financial success from taking a certain course or study or procedure. In fact, if a person obeys the principles outlined in the book, the performance can exceed the results that are depicted in these illustrations.
Would recommend anybody who is in the insurance industry or even a consumer taking the time to get some information from this course and from the book.
Prior to reading this book, I was in the proverbial dark with regard to finance. And after reading the book, I'm no longer. And so now I'm going to take steps to change that.
I've got a 24-year-old son who's entrepreneurial, but he doesn't know what to do. And now I have some information for him. He'll know what to do when we get through talking. And my daughter, who's 10, I get to use some of the information today to make it so she doesn't have to go to medical school. She can make money from the medical school.
It should be basic knowledge for anybody, but you don't get it in the system. You have to get outside the system to get this kind of knowledge and education. and Nelson provides that.
It's irreplaceable.
This concludes the infinite banking concept, becoming your own banker. Additional infinite banking resources, including R. Nelson Nash's 8-hour seminar series recorded live in DVD or VCR formats, audiobooks, ebooks, printed 3rd edition books, or to host a live infinite banking seminar with R. Nelson Nash, can be found online at infinitebanking.info.